Korach says, this whole community is holy, so why do you set yourself above? Why do you set yourselves above everybody else? And it's a compelling argument that draws hundreds of followers. And of course, its anti-authoritarian impulse seems in some ways wise, but the Hasidic commentators see something deeper happening here. The Sfat Emet, the second Gerer Rebbe, says on this parsha that the world is called the world of separation, this world, Olam de Piruda, a place shechol hanivraim yesh lechol echad bechinat le'atzmo, where every creature looks out for itself. Every creature is somehow in the aspect of itself. And of this posture, he says, it's all strife, this world of separation. And if we can exit the trance of separation, once we do that, we see that there's no difference between you and your fellow. And this ego strife makes no sense. So this seems true to me, that in this world of separation, we get trapped. I know I get trapped in my own ego projections. And I know this suffering well, this particular suffering of the way the I separates us from the wholeness of the world. Talmud says that Adam, that the first person was originally extended from one end of the earth to the other. And it's only when he leaves the garden that the illusion of separation emerges for him. So one thing that I noticed this week is that Moshe doesn't spend long arguing with Korach, convincing him intellectually that he's wrong. Instead, Moshe says, let's have God show us what's real. Tomorrow morning you can take your fire pans and you can offer the incense and you can notice, then you can listen and observe and see clearly, and we'll see what happens. And what happens then is, I want to acknowledge, profoundly disturbing and violent. The earth opens up and swallows Korach and his followers. And so it's not a feel-good parable about gentle discernment. But even with this ending, maybe perhaps because of this ending, there's something profound in the initial response of, don't think your way out of this. Listen to your life. Pay attention to what actually emerges when you step into this role you think you're meant for. So as I was reading this week, it was reminding me of a teaching from Parker Palmer about vocation. He writes, I'm going to put it in the chat so you can read it. Parker Palmer, Quaker teacher, master educator, he says, vocation does not come from willfulness. It comes from listening. I must listen to my life and try to understand what it is truly about, quite apart from what I would like it to be about, or my life will never represent anything real in the world, no matter how earnest my intentions. That insight is hidden in the word vocation itself, which is rooted in the Latin for voice. Vocation does not mean a goal I pursue. It means a calling that I hear. So the project then is learning to hear. It's learning to listen to life and to God and to ultimate truth or being. And the practice of mindfulness is one way that I know that strengthens the muscle of hearing what's really here, listening to life and to reality, instead of straying into our own mental noise and projections and the projection of the self and the ego, quite apart from what we would like to be here, listening to what's actually here. And we know Moshe could do this because at the burning bush, when God calls, he responds with simple presence. He responds with hineni. He's listening. So let's practice listening for a time. And find A comfortable position, comfortable enough. And you might start to connect with whatever contact there is between you and a chair, you and a bed, you and the floor. You might feel into the aliveness of the hands, whatever vibrating, pulsing. Can feel into this breathing body. The rise of the chest or the belly. Just slowing way down. No need to rush or force anything here. And you might open your ears to whatever sounds are in or outside of the room, any sounds that visit the ear. Whatever subtle or louder sounds come and go or come and stay. Seeing if this posture of receptivity, of just openness to hearing what's here without trying to change it or get rid of it. And you'll get pulled into a thought world or a story. And then just coming back to this soundscape. Not the idea of the thing or the label of the thing, but listening for the rawest version of what's here. Bringing the qualities of both relaxation and interest to this exploration of sound and listening. Enough relaxation that we're not going out to grab anything, but just resting back and seeing what visits. And enough attentiveness that the mind is alert, not dull or sleepy, but with some interest in each mundane sound, this quiet, and whatever else is here. Sometimes listening to our life is very loud. Sometimes it's very quiet, like the still small voice that came to Elijah in the silence. Sometimes it's just that space between two thoughts, or the pause between breaths. As we begin to close, you might notice when you're simply listening and receiving what's here without trying to fix or figure it out. In those brief moments, how does it feel different from the grasping separate self that wants things to be other than they are. Listen, 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 listen. Let your body be your guide. Let the one out decide. Ooh. Lose yourself in the meantime. Listen, 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 listen.
Thank you so much, Chloe. Beautiful. I hope folks here will have a chance to stay for questions and feedback and conversation about your experience with the practice. If you need to leave us, we wish you tzeitkhem l'shalom, farewell. Hope you'll join us again when you can. And in the meantime, we have a chance now for those who are remembering loved ones to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Thanks to Rachel, who's been on our tech support today for putting up the text. And you are welcome to you're welcome to unmute. That's next to the invite button. There's a mute for me. You can unmute yourself and you can join me in reciting Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, v'alma, divra, chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala, u'bizman kariv, v'imru, amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach
Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach Yelam Ramei
Yitbarach
Ramaya.
v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shmei dekudesha brichu
Brichu.
ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran da'alma v'imru amen.
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 Hey Shlama Rabba Maya Chaim Alayim Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
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 Shalom Bimramav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Leinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Right. Thank you so much. So welcome back to Chloe. If you have questions that you want to ask, please feel welcome to put them in the chat, but just put question in all caps. That helps us to see. And of course, you're always welcome to respond in the chat. And there's always a lively conversation. Ask you to practice mindful speech as always, Shmirat HaDibur. Okay. So first of all, Chloe, thank you for that lovely teaching on, and song. The song was great. On listening, and just the practice of deep listening, which it's always so necessary and always just an ever-present thing for us. And of course, we think of Shema Yisrael, it's something we try to listen and hear all the time. I wanted to put, there's a question here that Susan asked. First of all, just a very technical question, where the Sfat Emet was from that you cited. And a lot of people want to know, do you have a source sheet? But yes.
So the source sheet was just the Parker Palmer quote. It's in the chat in a couple of places, but I'll put it again here. That's from Let Your Life Speak. His book on vocation, and the Sfat Emet teaching can be found just Sfat Emet on Korach. I found it in Art Green's translation, his book In the Language of Truth.
Language, okay. Okay.
around Korach.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you. And I'd be curious for folks who are a lot of love for Parker Palmer on this chat. Should I share? Uh, I'm wondering for folks who we're sitting with the practice and listening to the song, just how you found what came up for you. And Chloe, I mean, I know you've been going through you're in a moment of transition, and a lot of, I'm sure there's been a lot of discernment. You're about to start taking up a new pulpit, just being ordained. And so I wonder for you, like this teaching of Parker Palmer and that very powerful thing from this Father Met of just finding the ways that we through our practice try to align, I guess, is what I heard in it, aligning our sense of self, ego, right? Our sense of who we are with a larger oneness. I'm wondering how that's like sort of unfolded for you. If you care to, if you want to reflect on that a little bit, in a recent period.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, so I was just blessed to be ordained in May, and I'm headed to a synagogue in Cambridge, Eitz Chaim. If you're around, come join us. And so I definitely feel like the theme of listen to your life and be present with what is where your life is pointed. I'm coming out of a period of great discernment around where I wanted to go next.
Yeah.
And my favorite line in that teaching is like, quite apart from what I would like my life to be about, what is my life actually about? I feel like as I get older, I'm a little less invested in the stories of what I thought I would do, or what other people wanted me to do, or the I don't know, social implications, or the like other projections about what it is I'm doing, and more able to, like, thank God, just be I don't know, yeah, a little less invested in that and a little more invested in hearing what's actually here. So I don't know, that's a vague answer, but I do feel like a little I was feeling some resonance with the teaching in this last period of yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us can probably think of maybe more, sort of particular inflection points, right? That can be longer or shorter, but where we really are struggling or striving to try to listen, or where it just comes, and there's like a download, like, where we listen and we're able to really hear clearly. And yeah, and I wonder for folks who are on the set, how that's come up for you, where you may have experienced that. Like, I know for me, there have been, a handful of those moments in life where, they're real inflection points, and, it changes the direction of the story. And then, of course, on a smaller level, that's true all the time, right? It's, we're always trying to listen and discern, and, like, what comes next, and we're always making choices, but some of those really stand out, in life. So yeah.
I mean, that the other thing that comes up for me is that as a hospital chaplain, which is where I worked before rabbinical school, I really felt like it was, and actually my work now as a death doula too, when I'm listening to someone who is ill or dying, it feels like one of the most sacred listening practices I do. And it's and listening to what's behind the words, and to the simplest, I like that exercise of just listening to what's actually like in a mindfulness practice of not listening to the soul or any like ideas about what's coming up, but actually like just the literal sounds, like listening to the actual sound of someone's voice, or to the emotion in someone's voice, or to the as the anchor. we can do that for ourselves. We can do that for someone who's suffering. We can do that for someone who's like in great joy. And sometimes doing it relationally makes it more possible or visceral, or but attuning the ear in that way is also a powerful mindfulness practice.
There's a couple of questions now that have come in. One, Lynn asked a question to talk about the difference between hearing and listening. To me, you can hear without listening, but you need to actively listen to process, respond, or be present. My mind is going to the Mike and the Mechanic song. Anyway, long time ago, where there's a lyric just about this. But yeah, I'm curious what how you would respond to that, the difference between hearing and listening.
It's a good question. What?
Do you agree that there's a difference, I guess, is the first question, or
this is like such a smart and astute comment. And truthfully, like I've never thought deeply about the differences between these words. And I tend to be a little, this whole conversation is in words, and words are directing us towards real practice, but I tend to not be that attuned to the subtle differences between words, because I like to be listening for whatever's beyond. But I think what Lynn says is quite wise. Maybe we can hear without listening, but listening is something a little more attuned, or allows us to
open awareness, right? Hearing could just be open awareness, right? Just aware of what's there.
Yeah.
Maybe in listening is, focusing in, on a particular thing, like really listening for something. But it's interesting though, I think also within a mindfulness practice, right? There's when we listen, or when we have, even just when we're hearing, right? Then to notice, it's almost impossible, in my experience, to hear something without then immediately the mind labels it. Right. I hear, oh, it's birdsong. Oh, I heard the wind. Oh, I hear Chloe's voice. Right.
Yeah.
Right now I hear the air conditioner blowing, or whatever it is. And so which is the discursive mind. I mean, it's literally discourse. It's labeling things, right?
Yeah.
And to then, from an awareness point of view, then to be aware of, oh, labeling is happening, right? And just like that's what the mind does. Whereas when I'm listening, I feel like, okay, I really want to focus in right now on Chloe, and I'm gonna like look, and I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna like be really, as my kids would say, locked in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody has also in the chat this point about like music and labeling the each note is an individual name. And the practice of labeling is so paradoxical, because in some ways it can really focus the attention. And I know, my friend who's like a I don't know, a horticulturalist or botanist, something, goes into the forest and sees like each individual tree has a name. Yeah. And there's something so like powerful about that in terms of the mindfulness required. And then also there's something so kind of dislocating about it, or he's walking through the woods and sees this and this and this, instead of like an openness to to what's here beyond.
You're like literally missing the forest for the trees. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there you go. So so I like labeling as a practice that gets us somewhere and then allows us to go somewhere else, exactly as you described.
Yeah. And there's different levels of labeling, of course, right? There's we group things by kind, and then you go down and up in terms of names and classifications. So a lot of good stuff coming up also in the chat. Ilana has a beautiful reflection of prayer today. And yeah, interesting. Okay, just looking through here. There's a lot of good stuff. Go ahead.
I see someone asking if I've ever had the privilege of hearing an ancestor's voice.
Yeah.
And actually that was coming up for me in the quick discussion on chaplaincy. I do feel like when I can get really, really quiet, there are moments where I hear my dad's voice, my dad who died 8.5 years ago. And I really like hear his voice, like something in his voice, what he would say to something, or what he would, yeah. And I have been really touched by, as a chaplain, sitting with people who are grieving and seeing that happen for them too, that this practice of like getting really quiet, that sometimes it's possible to access something that is not always possible to access. So whether it's peace or something that's beyond, there does seem to me to be a link between hearing in the present and hearing an ancestor's voice.
And quiet, like, I mean, the other thing about quiet is just speaking. Even I remember when I got my first pair of noise canceling like earbuds, right? I had always had just the regular earbuds, and then like for my birthday a couple of years ago, I splurged and like they were on sale or whatever, and I bought some noise canceling ones, and it was like this revelation to me. Listening to music and being able to like hear the bass or hear just much on a much more fine-tuned level. Like, I mean, it's still not a concert, but it's a lot closer than, before. And so just the reduction of, I mean, it's we talk about the difference between like hearing signal and hearing noise. Uh, so when we can reduce the amount of noise, which of course in our practice, so much of that begins with just the basic move of trying to quiet the mind, hashkata, like bring quiet to the mind. And that allows us to hear, other things that may be like murmuring on lower registers, right?
Right.
More of the bass or more of the high notes or more of the fine tuning that we don't always get to hear, but it's there if we can hear, but we got to lower the noise level. Yeah.
Right. I saw that. I also this week learning on this, I saw Rebbe Nachman says, when the sheep has not strayed far, it recognizes the voice and immediately follows the shepherd being God. But when the sheep strayed far, it forgets the voice. So there's something about like staying really close, like our mindfulness practice is a practice of getting really intimate with reality and staying really close so that we're not straying far into mental noise and we lose the thread.
Right. Right. And at the same time, right, I think about it's the story of is the Maggid or Levi Yitzhak, I should remember, but who's was at his son and grandchild were at the house, and the son was, studying, was engaged, both of them were engaged in their learning, and the baby's crying,
Yes,
and right,
yes.
and of course the son doesn't, the son is so absorbed in his learning he doesn't go, and then so the Rebbe goes and he takes care of the baby, and the moral of the story being like, don't be so absorbed in your learning that you forget, that you don't hear the sound of a crying baby, right? So it's like stay close, but also like remember what to stay close to, or and that's not to the exclusion of Talmud Torah. Like we shouldn't be not studying Torah, but like how we live in multiple dimensions and allow our awareness to be expansive when it needs to be and focused when it needs to be. I mean, maybe that's the
Yeah,
trick.
right. That dance between concentration and kind of like an open awareness.
Yeah.
That's a nice story I hadn't heard that story for that teaching, but that makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, there's a great chat here. So those who like to save the chat, I always get this question. If you want to do that, there's three dots should be on your chat box, and you can click it and you can save the chat. Want to thank Rachel again for holding down our tech today and supporting us so that all of us can be here. Thank Chloe for a wonderful teaching and song and practice. And thank everybody here for your presence and being part of this community. And we will look forward to seeing you again. Take care.